Welcome to Soulful Success by Design, the podcast for women who are done playing small, done following the rules, and ready to create success on their own terms. I'm Kendra Woods, a soul-aligned business mentor, 6'2" splenic projector, and the midwife to women's breakthroughs. For nearly a decade, I've been guiding ambitious women like you to step out of old paradigms of success and step fully into your next evolution through the art of human design, mindset, quantum energetics, and identity work. Here, we treat business like what it truly is, a sacred, creative process, a place to embody your becoming. So if you're ready to rise, ready to rewire how you think about success, and ready to lead from your soul, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Soulful Success by Design, the podcast for soul-led women entrepreneurs who are here to redefine success on their terms. This is the Redefining Success movement, where we trade hustle for alignment, trends for timelessness, and surface-level strategy for deep, soul-rooted leadership. And in today's episode, I'm really excited because I'm having a beautiful conversation with Suzanne Hallerman, who is a woman whose story and presence really does embody the very essence of authenticity and healing. So, to give you some background on Suzanne, Suzanne is a mother, daughter, sister, and friend born in Toronto, Canada. And over the course of her life, she has lived in 4 countries, traveled extensively around the world, and carried many titles from outward bound instructor to international bike tour guide for celebrities to teacher, designer, and artist. But it was a pivotal experience in 2016 after a devastating breakup that truly reshaped the trajectory of her life. Suzanne attended a multi-day somatic emotional release workshop where she connected with deep childhood grief, losing her sister suddenly at only 4 years old during an international move, and she discovered layers of unresolved emotion she had guarded her entire life. So through this work, Suzanne not only healed herself, but also co-facilitated workshops, supported countless clients, and even taught this work to students in Portland, Oregon, where she has lived for 25 years, raising her 2 now adult children. So today, Suzanne brings together her gifts of holding space, her artistry, her vulnerability, and her willingness to explore the unseen, guiding others to wake up and come home to the truth of themselves. And I'm also really honored to share that this is Suzanne's very first podcast interview, and she has chosen to share it with us here on Soulful Success by Design. Suzanne, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy that you're here.
Woo woo! Thank you. What a beautiful introduction. I'm like, who is she talking about? I want to meet that woman. Wait a minute,
Yes,
it's me.
it's you.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we dive into your story and get to asking questions and all that, I'd love to just start by asking you, how are you arriving in this space today? What's alive for you in this moment?
What's alive for me today? It's a great question. I feel a little bit nervous because like you said, it's my first podcast. And also, I'm like, what on earth do you have to be nervous about? It's you. Like, it's your story. You can't get it wrong. And as you touched on, authenticity is one of my core pillars. So it's just going to come the way it's going to come. And, whatever is meant to come through will. So taking a deep breath into that and feeling excited too. It's exciting to stretch your edge and find new growth and do new things and put yourself out there. Tell your story, in a way that it might resonate for somebody else. Um I know that there's been so many people along my path that I've seen myself in, who have just been those sort of light posts, if you will, without them even really knowing, how many people have touched your life that have no idea that they have, right? So something about that kind of thing moving forward too, of leaving a light post out for other people that might need them.
Yes, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what our stories can do. I love that. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why we all as human beings are kind of connected to stories and we love listening to stories because I feel like it doesn't matter what someone's story is, I think we can find pieces of ourselves in everyone's story,
A
you
hundred percent.
know?
Yep.
So I love
Completely
it.
agree. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's dig in a bit. So you've
Okay.
had a rich and varied life, right? Living in multiple countries, guiding book tours, teaching, creating art.
Hmm.
Can you share with us how this journey ultimately led you into the deep healing and authenticity work that you do now?
Sure. I think authenticity is just a part of my who I am.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I've always been that person. My family's like, okay, here's Suzanne. She's going to tell it straight.
Here she comes.
Sometimes to the point of like, you kind of wish you could like couch it a little bit or like, make it a little softer, but it's just not who I am. It's
Yeah.
just going to come out the way it's going to come out, and hopefully it lands the way it's intended, because it's never intended to be mean-spirited, right? But sometimes speaking the truth without, putting some fluffy edges on it is not
Mhm.
easy for people to receive always, right? So
Correct.
it's just a
Mhm.
core element of who I am. And that's always who I've been in my family. But, we did move around a lot. Like you said, at 4 years old, we had our first international move from Toronto to Paris. And during that summer, before we moved, we were in Vancouver visiting my mother's family. My dad was already in Europe, and we all got the chicken pox. There were three of us, myself and my two sisters. And the doctor prescribed aspirin,
Mm.
but aspirin for children, especially in conjunction with chicken pox, can cause a very severe reaction, which we now know is called Rye syndrome. So my
Oh,
middle sister got the aspirin. I'm sure we all got the aspirin, and within days she died. So we were in the middle of the move to Europe, and my sister died. So we moved
wow.
anyways. The company, my dad worked for Procter and Gamble for 35 years, and maybe it was 38, a long time.
Yeah.
And the company was like, you don't have to go. The people that bought the house in Toronto, you can have it back. I mean, what happens when especially a child dies, right? Children aren't supposed to die, right? Like,
Exactly.
but we're all going to die. It's just a question of how much time we have, right?
This is true.
So everyone did whatever they could to, make this terrible thing better. But the truth is, it's just a terrible thing.
Mhm.
There's not anything that's going to make it better, because she's not coming back. So
Right.
my parents chose to move anyway. And, I understand why they would have. But it was the 70s. Nobody was talking about grief. Nobody was doing any grief counseling. Nobody, so I think that there was also an element of like, they were maybe relieved to go to a place that people didn't know the story. There were a couple people, right? The school would have known, our neighbors knew, one of them was like, I thought there were three girls, but outside of that, the people that we met moving forward did not know. And I think that that was comfortable in a lot of ways for my
Mhm.
family, for my parents. I mean, I can't imagine, I'm a mom now myself, right? So I cannot imagine there couldn't be a worse thing to happen than to lose your child.
I know.
Um, so I have a lot of compassion and empathy for them, now having like being in that sort of time of my life and not having had that experience, with my own children, fortunately. But nobody talked about it. It was really like it was a taboo subject. And as a sensitive child, like I didn't want to bring it up. Like you don't want to make everyone upset. You can read the room, right? You can feel
Yep.
it. And so
Exactly.
it just got buried. We just moved on, and that is sort of the motto of my mother's life is like get over it. And
Mhm.
I admire that to an extent, right? There is like being able to move past the thing. I mean, everyone has trauma in their life, every single person, right? Like that doesn't mean that
Exactly.
everyone's trauma is the same, like certainly there's all sorts of capital T, lower T, but we experience trauma all the time, actually. It's just what we decide to do with that impacts whether we get stuck in it or not. And so life moved on, and I didn't really know that I had any grieving to do because nobody showed me that I did, like the message was get over it. And so we
Mhm.
did, and
Mhm.
we moved on. And I've had a very privileged and lovely life. I really have. I've been very fortunate. And we were expats before that was really a thing. And we got to, go all over Europe before there were tons of tourists there. And, like people weren't traveling in the 70s the way that they do now. There was no social media, all that kind of stuff. It was all these hidden,
Right.
beautiful gems, right? So, um, yeah. So how did that lead me to the emotional release? I didn't
Yeah.
know I had any work to do. And
Mm.
then my one of my first sort of quote real jobs after the Outward Bound and after guiding bike trips, because those were like contractor kind of, there was very, very exciting times in my life and it was really fun. I'm glad I did those things. But the first like real skill that I had was graphic design. And I did a logo for a woman who called herself a corporate shaman.
Oh,
So she would,
interesting.
yeah, she would journey for your business to tell you like what, which direction you should sort of go. And she wanted to do a logo. Um, she wanted to do a logo for her business and she approached the agency that I was working for, but their prices were, I'm sure, just cost prohibitive for an independent person doing such a thing. So they said, "Hey, Suzanne, why don't you freelance for this woman and do this logo?" So I said, "All right." So I met with her and she wanted to show me what it meant to have a journey, basically,
Mhm.
and what did I want to journey for? And I was always obsessed with my body, with my weight, with, body image, that kind of thing. And I think in a lot of ways, it's how I avoided touching my pain, was to focus
Mm,
on something like that.
right.
And so the experience. I wanted to know, like, something like what she would journey for, but also I didn't want to make it too personal. So she was like, "What question?" And I said, I don't remember what the question, but it was something to do with weight loss. And she
Yeah.
was just like, "I'm not doing that." And I thought,
Yep.
then do whatever you want. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's my question. That's what I want answered. And I mean, I really felt that at the time. And she was like, "I'm not journeying for that." And I was like, "Okay, like no worries." And so she was like, she was sort of like, "Okay, what other question?" I was like, I don't have one." She was like, "Tell me your story." So, I
Okay.
started telling her. I mentioned Jennifer, that's my sister who died.
Hmm.
I started to cry. And then she said, "I think I should journey for how could Suzanne grieve the loss of her sister?" And immediately in my mind, I thought, well, that's ridiculous because
Right.
it had been a long time. Like I'm thinking this is 2005, maybe at
Uh-huh.
this point. I was born in 73. I don't know what the math is on that, but whatever. It'd been a while, like
Right.
it had been close to 30 years at that point. So what do you
Wow.
mean I'm not over this? What do you mean I haven't grieved my sister? That's in my head, the words came, "That's ridiculous," which is
Hmm.
definitely a phrase that my mother says all the time. And I'm sorry, I love my mother. My mother's fantastic. And also, like, as moms, we get blamed for all of it. We do.
Oh,
I've
of course.
done all the circles down in California and done all the workshops, and like 99.9% of the people have an issue with their mother. It's
Hmm.
more about 75% with their father. But as moms, it's just the hat that we wear that we get blamed, right, for all the stuff. So I do want to say
Hmm.
I have a lovely mother, and
Yeah.
and I adore
Yeah.
her.
We're not beating up on mama, right?
No, we're not beating up on mom, and you know what? She did her best, and we really are
That's
all doing
right.
our best all the time. Like
That's
I just
right.
can't imagine what it might have been like for her to have to live, the life that she's had to live minus one of
Exactly.
her children.
Yeah.
Um, Anyways, so yeah, so my journey took me down to California and to this emotional release workshop, and that's where I went because of a breakup. But when I got there, I mean, the very first session that I had, I cried so hard I thought I broke something in my eye, literally.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
know it came from such a deep place that I thought this is not about a breakup, and really half the room cried with me. I mean, I was just like, I don't even, it was almost an out of body experience. Like, who is that on the table crying like that?
Right.
And I think that was the beginning of understanding that, like, oh, maybe she was not wrong. And also, I do want to say, like, that wasn't my first stop, like over time, when somebody says something
Uh-huh.
that you're probably not prepared to hear, but it just kind of lands and it sits and then it's like in the open, you
Yes.
know. And then over time you're like, well, maybe that's not such a far-fetched idea. Like, when would I have grieved? And so then I started to seek out like a little bit more of my healing and, starting with talk
That's so good.
therapy and all the
Hmm.
things. And then it was like eventually like telling my story at first was really difficult. Then
Of
it was like,
course.
now that doesn't feel like enough. Now what's next?
Mhm.
What's next? So I wrote a list once. I have done over, I think, 45 different modalities of healing.
Wow,
Just
that is
like trying
amazing.
them. Yeah.
Right, right. I love this so much because it's like when we talk about the topic of grieving, I feel like that it's we obviously talk more about it today and we hear there's
Mm-hmm.
coaches that help you move through it. There's
Mm-hmm.
whole niche, right, designed for that. And it's interesting that if you were never kind of taught that that's, and I think too, maybe it's generational, right? Like when I look back at like
100%.
my parents and my grandparents, it's like they didn't operate that way. It was like, all right, we've got to keep moving. Like,
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
we've done this, let's keep moving.
Hmm.
And I think now we're at a place where I think it's becoming okay to speak to it, to speak
Hmm.
about it, to talk about it. And people are starting to realize, oh, wait, I've actually been carrying something
Hmm.
and not even realizing it, right? Until
That's
someone
right.
plants that seed. And the first, like you said, in your mind, you're like, that's ridiculous. But the
Yeah.
seed was planted, right? And
Hmm.
then you're like,
Hmm.
wait a
Yeah.
minute. And that just unravels
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
time.
And I would say that it's like, it's essential. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
100% you are carrying what you didn't finish,
Mhm.
and we all have
Absolutely.
different capacity for what we move through and what we hold and without
Mhm.
even realizing it. But it's in your DNA, it is in your nervous system, it is stuck there.
Yes.
And whatever you are shoving down and not looking at
Mhm.
is just gonna get louder. It's
Right.
just gonna get bigger until you don't have a choice but to look at it.
Absolutely. And I think that's what brings a lot of people to their own healing journey is when
Hmm.
something happens and it's like you can no longer look away. You have to look at it
Hmm.
and go, what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
Like this is not
Yeah.
normal. And I think it can be easy to override throughout the years because what we're talking about is something that is intangible. Like you really can't see it.
That's
But if
right.
we begin to pay attention to our behaviors or the way that we handle certain situations, the way we respond to certain things, and begin to kind of reverse engineer, we might be able to. I think that's where it starts showing up because it does begin to show up as symptoms on the external. And
100%.
sometimes internally symptoms show up and we're
Yep.
trying to figure out what it is. And everyone's like, we don't know what it is. And
That's
sometimes
right.
it's
That's right.
emotions.
That's right. I believe that it's the root of sickness. I
Yeah,
believe that it's the
yeah,
root in your relationships, with your
yeah,
family, with your partner, with,
mhm,
whoever the people are that you're closest to. That's where it starts to come
yeah.
out, if
It
you don't,
does.
yeah, if you don't manage it
Yeah,
beforehand.
absolutely.
Yeah. And it's not easy either,
Mm-mm.
like especially depending on the environment that you grew up in, whether or not that was something that, a lot of it, like you said, is generational.
Hmm.
And fair enough, right? Like, I mean, I feel like our
Right.
ancestors were surviving.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
Exactly,
And that's
Suzanne. That's,
okay,
yeah.
They didn't have the luxury of being able to have comfort and, access and all these things, right?
Yes. I said
Mhm.
these same words to my husband a couple of weeks ago. I said, and I was thinking about, my ancestors and just like, my parents and my grandparents and all
Mhm.
that. And I said to him, I said, I said, if you're a person who's grown up in this world and your only thing, like you've got to focus on survival, and that's all you've got to just
Yeah.
focus on survival. I'm like, you have no bandwidth or no space to even think
No.
about your
Mhm.
other needs.
100%. Yeah.
And that really clicked. And when you were speaking, I was like, yeah, that's what it is. I think a lot of it too is like our ancestors, like they were surviving.
Yep.
They're like, let's just survive, get
That's
the
right.
kids grown and let's
Mhm.
just keep moving. So
It was a
for sure.
beyond a full-time job, I'm sure,
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no space for the luxury of healing,
Right.
right?
Right. Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. So, all right. So you mentioned, you said 45 modalities. You've been on your
Yeah.
own like healing journey for
Yeah.
20 years. Maybe it's been 20, maybe more than 20 years.
Mhm.
And so let me ask you this, right? So after seeking out and moving through these different modalities,
Mhm.
what were you seeking or what did you ultimately
Yeah.
find? Or are you someone like me who's like, I'm curious about all the things. I'm like,
Yeah,
I wonder what this will do. I wonder what that will do. Like, what
that's
was it
right.
for you?
I know, now you sound like my mom. "What are you looking for?" And I'm like, "I don't
Right.
know, but why are you not looking?" It's
Right.
just, aren't you curious? Like, what are we here to do? Like, I'm quite sure that we're not here to just show up at a job every day, especially a job that we hate. Like, I'm quite sure
Exactly.
that's not it.
That's not it.
That's not it. And
Hmm.
so, I've always sort of chosen, I'm a Sag. I don't know if you're into like the zodiac and that kind of stuff, but I'm a Sagittarius, like I'm creative. I'm like I'm always like, oh look, there's something else over there, and like let's go try this, and so
Oh.
I think just by the nature of who I am, I'm a seeker.
Mhm.
I want to try all the things, I want to do all the things, and yeah, I do feel like there's a part of me that's trying to understand like what is a human? What are we doing here? Like what what is this? Like, what is this and what's next? And where do we go when we die? And where, like, what? Like, it's
Yeah.
just so I'm drawn by all of that, and I guess it hasn't always been that way. I haven't always had those big questions, but yeah, I'm curious, like, what's next and how do I get to be my best self and how do I get to do what I came here to do? How do
Mm.
I get to clear enough of the debris out of the way? Because here's what I've learned over all of the 45 modalities and what I'm looking for. Um, and I just totally lost my train of thought.
All good.
um, what was I gonna say? Um, I don't know. It's totally gone. It'll come
Yep,
back if it was meant to.
it will. It will
Yeah.
come back. But I like that you mentioned that you're a seeker.
Hmm.
And because I resonate with that too. And I feel like I call it curiosity, but I've always
Hmm.
been fascinated with human beings.
Hmm.
And you said that too, like just humans. Like I remember always, even as a young girl, like looking at different people and just being really curious about
Hmm.
them as a person, right?
Hmm.
Like how they lived their life or what their culture was like or
Hmm.
how they viewed life. Like it's just fascinating
Yeah.
to me. And I think that there's so many depths. There's so much depth to us as human beings. And it's like, I don't know about you, but I'm like, I want to experience what all those different layers are. I
Yeah.
feel like that's part of why we are here. And I've
That's
often
right.
said, like my wake up moment was like me laying in bed like after a horrible, panic attack working in
Hmm.
corporate and thinking to myself, okay, this could not be this could not be it. It cannot be go to
Hmm.
work, get a
Hmm. That's
paycheck,
right.
not like the job that you have,
Yeah. Yeah.
living for the weekend, feeling dread on Monday. I'm like, there's
Yeah.
got to be more to this human
Yeah.
experience than this.
100%, a hundred
You know?
percent, 100%, and also like
So,
just the idea of like the family that you grew up in, is like that's your
mhm.
experience. But when you're young, like you don't really get that, like that's really an individual experience, right? You sort of assume
Right.
that everybody else is having a similar experience, or at least that's what's
Yep.
true for me, right? Where it's like, oh,
Mhm.
you just think that other people's lives look like yours, and they don't, like everyone has their own thing. And I mean, I believe that we choose our families. I believe that we choose what we
Mhm.
come into. And I think I chose this. I think I chose,
Yeah.
like, yeah, that looks pretty good. Yeah, you
Yep.
lose a sister early on. Yep. um but everything else that sort of came with it. And I think what I learned, and this is what I was going to say earlier, is that like, do not tell me it's about to disappear again, is that how much it's influenced my whole life without me
Yeah.
understanding that, like how much losing a sister at 4 and then moving internationally, and how much
Mhm.
that's impacted just
Mhm.
who I am and how my life journey has unfolded. Of course, that makes sense, but when I look back at it, and 45 modalities in, how much it's wired into my nervous system,
Exactly.
to the extent of like that it's been like the past 3 or 4 years that I realize how armored I am all the time. And you know what I mean by that?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
you wake up in the morning, you sit on the toilet, you're ready to fight, and you're like, what is going on? Like,
Right.
why are my shoulders on my ears? You know what I mean? Like, chill out. There is
Right.
nobody here but you, like we're all set. But you realize how much you're holding 24/7, and I think that that's been, again, it's been a long process of getting here, but I feel like you take the next step, you take the next step, you take the next step,
Hmm.
and you start to really understand, like, oh my God, this is a lifetime, And I always
Yes.
like to say that, like, the thing about grief and death is that, like, it happened to all of us. You know what I mean? It wasn't at the hands of somebody else, right? Like there's so many people that carry so much trauma that is ongoing, but that also happened at the hands of someone else. And so for a long time I tried to minimize, I'm like, yeah, but no one raped me, or no one, you know what I mean? Like no one sexually
Right.
assaulted me, or like this, it feels smaller than that in some
Hmm.
way, and my teacher was like, Suzanne, pain is pain, and it took me a long time to agree that pain is pain, and that regardless of the package that it comes in, one is not more or less than another,
Hmm.
like they both have significant impact, you know?
Absolutely. That is such a
Mm.
fabulous point. And I think
Yeah.
that I've seen this in business too, like when you know, like if you're watching, you know, you see other coaches and healers out in the world and they talk about their story.
Hmm.
And we can easily do this. Well, my story is not as dramatic as that. So I
That's
don't know if
right.
I have anything to even share. And it's like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
like, you know, it's like not everyone's story. And I don't know why we do this, but it's like we
Hmm.
rate it,
Hmm.
right? Well,
Hmm.
my, like, yeah, I had some things going on in
That's
my world
right.
too, but it was nothing like that. So can
Right.
I really even go out there and share my story and my voice?
That's right.
And the answer is yes, you can because what you move through and how you move through, like it's individual, it's you, right?
Yeah.
It's your experience
That's right.
and how you move through it, what you've learned, what
Hmm.
happened. That's all just beautiful. What do I want to say? Like it matters.
It
It
matters. And also,
matters.
please do share your story. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Like, yes, your voice is necessary, you know? And
Yeah.
whether it's necessary, like, what if there's one single person that needs to hear what your experience is? Isn't
Exactly.
that enough? You know what I
Yes.
mean? It doesn't have to be that the whole world needs to resonate or see themselves in it, you know? And maybe lots of people can say, like, oh, yeah, who are you to say that? But you know what? If there's that one person that's like, it's an aha moment for them, or a light bulb goes off for them, or they seek, healing and help because of that, like,
Mhm.
okay, was it worth it? I think so.
I think so too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So since
Yeah.
you've been on like your own journey, a lot of your story obviously
Mhm.
involves like, you know, you touching on deep childhood grief, emotional
Mm.
release. We talked about the modalities.
Mhm.
How has moving through like your own journey shaped the way that you hold space for others?
Mhm.
And I think that's going to be cool to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it's shaped it so much, you know. I think that once you start to delve into your work and to delve into it, like I said in the beginning, it felt really hard to go into a therapist's office and sit on a, sofa in front of someone and talk, like that felt just overwhelming and like I can't do
Mhm.
it. But then, and actually, the way that I found ERT, the emotional release, so a friend of mine who I see every summer, at my parents' cabin, like, we were doing a puzzle. We do a puzzle every year. And she was like, watch this. And it was this 20-minute video of this woman having this modality. And she's laying on a massage table and she is wailing. And I was like, what is that? Like,
Right.
I want to do that. Because, and part of it too is that there was no story. I think I don't have a lot of memories, and I don't think that's an accident. And so I think that so much of when you're doing your work, you think you're recounting your story and you're telling your story. And it's like, lots of people don't have the story because the lack of the story is what got you here. The lack of the story is what protected you, from your
Exactly.
younger self that couldn't handle it. And
Mhm.
so then it makes it more difficult when you want to go and heal the thing that you don't have the story to tell. All that's left is like a confused nervous system and a confused, brain in a way.
Mhm.
And so in some ways it feels like you have less to work with.
Right.
Um, and so the emotional release thing. So she showed me the video, and then I thought, okay, I want to go do that. And the woman was in California, I'm in Oregon, so I thought, okay,
Hmm.
that's not too far. So I contacted her, and I was like, hey, I want to come down and have a couple sessions. And really, frankly, by the time I got myself down to Sebastopol, which is where she is, and got a rental car, fed myself, housed myself, like all the stuff, it was going to be pretty expensive to have two sessions. And she
Right.
said, I have this 5-day workshop. And I thought, oh, hell no, I'm not doing that. You know? And without even looking at my calendar, I was like, nope, can't do that. Like, no
Right.
chance am I doing this in a group of people.
Right.
Absolutely zero. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Like, no, but then I got off the phone and I sort of like calculated it all out. And I thought, okay, for an extra $300 or something, I can do 5 days of this work. So I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's going to be, but like, I would give myself the best chance by doing the workshop. So I called her back. I was like, all right, I'll join your 5-day workshop. And I went and I was like, I was just like, I don't give a shit about any of the rest of you. And I mean, obviously
Right.
that's not, but you know what? I
Yeah,
thought
I know.
blinders on, like head down.
Exactly.
I'm here for me. I'm not here to
Mhm.
engage with the rest of you. I'm not here to support the rest of you. I'm here to do my work. And it just
Mhm.
happens that there's, 14 other people in the room. Like, what? But,
Right.
but like the joke, of course, is that those people became the biggest gift. And And it made a huge difference actually to do the work in the room, with the other people. And it was only because of the circumstances, right? If I'd had all the money, I wouldn't have had that experience because I would have just paid for myself to go. And so I just think that there's a way that life sort of works out to give you exactly what you need, even when you don't want it to be that
Hmm.
way, even when like you'd love for it to be something else. Um, but yeah, I'm not sure I answered your question, but I feel like doing like that was a big thing about me learning to hold space for people was being first of all in the room with a lot of other people, and so what happened was I joined the workshop. After 5 days I felt like a different person. I came back to Portland and people were like, did you lose weight, did you cut your hair? Like, they reflected back to me that I was different. I knew I was different, but they immediately could see it, which was very powerful. And so
Hmm.
there was no chance I wasn't going back for more. And she was starting a school at the time. And so, everyone's like, "Oh, you're going to join the school?" And I thought, "Yeah, I don't want to learn the work. Like, that's not why I'm joining it. I'm joining it so I can receive the work because there was nobody in Portland at the time that did it."
Right.
And so I joined the school just for my own purposes. And then
Exactly.
over time your needs change, right? Like, you start to do your
Hmm.
work and you're like, okay. And then at the end of that school, she asked me to teach the next one with her. And so I was
Hmm.
like, hell yeah,
Oh,
because
that's
then
good.
it's almost like I got to do it again,
Mhm.
paid, like it was a stipend, but nonetheless, it was like I got to do it for a little bit. And
Yes.
so I essentially like immersed myself, deep dived into that work. And then I did it for, it's been almost 10 years. So over time, I mean, I've held a lot of space and a lot of circles. And the
Mhm.
thing that I'll say about emotional release, like, I have stepped away from it now, and I've stepped away because I feel like it's too aggressive. And I don't know whether that's just because I've moved out of needing that piece. But it, like, with all the research that is being done around trauma, and we have so much more information now.
Yes.
I'm not sure that it's like that it's not too far. Even though I
Right.
needed it. I mean, I really like it. I know how it benefited my life. Um, but I've stepped into like sort of softer modalities that, have more pendulation, more titration, more,
That's what I'm about to say. Yeah, and
yeah.
more titration. Exactly.
Yeah. And so, and in the emotional release work, we would call that the open hand, right? And it's not like there's none of it. But it just isn't aligning anymore. And what I know about myself is if it's not 100% aligned, then I'm not 100%
That's
And so
right.
I want the thing that's like a solid full body yes. That is what I'm looking for.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. I want to dig into that for a little bit
Yeah.
because, I wanted to talk about alignment. And I love what you just said. If it's not aligned anymore, if it's not a full body yes,
Mhm.
how did you get to that place? And I'm asking you this because we hear this word alignment a lot out in the
Mhm.
coaching space, right? Being
Mhm.
aligned, I teach alignment, right? We talk about it a
Mhm.
lot. But I have found in my journey for the longest time, this idea of alignment felt so elusive. I was like, how do I
Yeah.
know I'm in alignment? Like, how do I
Right.
even know? What does that look like? So,
Yeah.
can you share with us, what you said a full body yes, but what do you think helped you get to that place of really
Mhm.
knowing what was alignment for you, number one? And then what clues or cues did you give
Mm.
yourself to know that, okay, yeah, this is the thing for me, or no,
Yeah.
that's not the thing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's something that you come to by trial and error, and I think that you tiptoe towards it. I think it's something
Yeah.
that you don't get there. You don't open the door one day and go, okay, looking for full body alignment. Because what does that even mean? Like you said,
Hmm.
I think you get there by, first of all, making all the mistakes. I think you get there by like going with the things that aren't a full body alignment. Like, I think my whole life there's been a lot of yes, but energy, like yes, comma, but. Right. Like,
Hmm.
even with the emotional release, like when she said, will you teach it with me? I said, yes, I said, yes, I would love to do that, but it's not going to be me. There's always been that thing for me where I don't I'm a truth teller, right? Like, we've established that. So I'm not going to pretend to be something that I'm not. I'm going to tell you up front that it's not going to be me in the end, and then you can choose whether or not you want to continue moving forward with me, right? Because in the
Right.
end, I don't want to have let you down. Like, I want
Hmm.
you to know all along. I said that from day one. And so I said yes, but, and she said, okay, great, let's do it. And it feels good to be chosen, right? Like, that's always been where I come out of alignment, is when people choose me. And I'm like, oh yeah, that feels so good. Yes, for sure. Of course, I'm doing this, right? But that's where I start to give myself up because it feels good to be chosen.
Right.
You go with that rather than choosing yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? And yeah, of course, collaboration, is important, and I think that helps to unfold and show you, you
Right.
know. But I would also argue that, like, I don't know what my next step is, and like you just said, how, that elusive thing, that full body yes, like,
Mhm.
how do you lock it in for yourself? How do you know what the way forward is of, like, okay, yeah, full body yes, here's what I'm going to do. It's like, I know that there's 10 different ways that I could go from here.
Mhm.
Which is the one?
Yes.
I don't know what the answer is. And maybe the answer is to continue to make mistakes. That's probably what Shosh would say, right? Is like,
Exactly.
just go, just do the thing.
Hmm.
By doing the
Yep.
thing, you're going to know, and you can continue to shape it. But by sitting over here waiting for it to be perfect, which,
Mhm.
hello, do I feel seen? Like, I'll start when I have it perfect, or I'll start after I've listened to
Mhm.
all the trainings and all the, and it's like, okay, but you're going to be waiting for a minute. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to make any progress. You're going to learn more by making the mistake. I'm talking to
Exactly.
myself right now, than you are by waiting for it to be perfect to start. Like, I think about
Yes.
how much I've learned along the way. If I'd never gone to that, workshop, I wouldn't have known,
Mhm.
right? I wouldn't have started down that 10-year journey. And even
Yeah.
though it's not my direct path still, I learned a ton. I would be in such a different place in my life if I had not had that decade of,
Yes.
experience in that.
Yeah.
So I think the answer is you keep trying. You keep moving towards what feels more in alignment. You find the courage to say no to the things that are not in alignment, and I think that's the way. And I think over time, you just keep refining and refining, and you keep learning in your body what that feels like,
Mhm.
what a full body yes feels like. And, I'm still not there. I'm getting closer, but,
Mhm.
and maybe that's life. Like, maybe that's the journey, right? Is like moving towards a full body yes. I'm not sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this so much because what I just heard you say too is that alignment is not perfection. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that, and I'll speak from my experience when I was like, newer in the industry and I would hear this term alignment. Like I knew what it meant intellectually, like I got it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, alignment, like we know what that means. But when it came to actually that trickling down into my body and knowing in my body
Mm-hmm.
what was in alignment and what wasn't, that was a whole nother story. And then
Mm-hmm.
on top of that, you put this idea of perfection and you think, okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
alignment must mean that I've got to do things perfect. And then what do
Yeah.
we do when we think we got to have things perfect is we typically don't do anything
That's
because
right.
we're
We
worried about like,
freeze.
what
That's
if it
right.
doesn't, yeah, what if it doesn't work? What
Yeah.
if it doesn't? And so I like what you're saying here that like to find your alignment, it is about trial and error. It
Mhm,
is about going out
mhm.
there and finding out
That's right.
and paying attention to what feels good, right? In your body, what feels like a leaning forward or a
Mhm.
tingling in the body,
Yes.
or what feels like a heavy like denseness in the body, what feels like constriction in the body.
Mhm.
And so at the end of the day, it means that we've got to have some sort of connection with our bodies.
That's right. Yes.
And I
Yes.
think that even going back further, in order for us to have that connection with our bodies, we've got to be willing to tap into how our bodies talk to us, which is through
Yeah.
emotion,
Yeah. Yeah. I
right?
love what you're saying. Yes.
And I just, it's just all kind of clicking as we're
Yeah.
talking. So I'm thinking when we aren't taught how to connect to our emotions,
Yes.
then how can we be then truly connected to what's authentic and in alignment for us?
That's right.
Right?
100%. Yes, and also, I would add to your list is follow
Mhm.
your energy, right? Like, notice after something, is your energy lifted, or do you feel like you need a nap? Like, are you are
Right.
you energized, or are you exhausted?
Hmm.
Yeah, I love everything you're saying. It's clicking for me too,
Yeah.
that yes. And also, so many of us have not been taught because, again, generationally, like, our parents have not been in their bodies necessarily, right?
Right.
Like, nobody in my family has been in their body. You know what I mean? I'm sure they're still not in their body. So, like, how are they going to show you? They can't model it. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? So then you have to either, like, and so many of us, I know it sounds crazy, don't even live in our bodies. So many of us are like floating heads, right? If we're even there, where you're here, but you're only in your brain, and your brain is a lovely part of your body and very necessary, but it is not embodied. Like, your brain is like, I love The Untethered Soul. Have you read that book? Michael
The
Singer.
untethered,
The
the
Untethered
untethered
Soul.
soul. Yes.
Oh my God, right? Where he talks about
Yes.
your like your brain is your roommate, right? And you're like sitting on the sofa and he's like, "Oh my God, you would have kicked that person out a long time ago, you know, but we keep turning to our brain for the answer. Your brain doesn't have the answer. Your body has the answer. Your
Exactly.
body does not lead you wrong. I've got chills right now. Your body doesn't lead you astray, but your brain all day long will lie
It
to you
will.
all day long. And we keep signing up to listen
Yes.
to it, you know, and it's like, oh my
Yes.
God, stop. Like the body knows, you know, the body will
Mhm.
not lead you astray.
It will not. It will
Yeah.
not. And it's like our brains, it's like you said, like our minds and brains, like, yes, our brains have a place, but and I tell
Yeah.
this to my clients all the time. I'm like, listen, your brain right now as it stands
Yeah.
can't really show you or tell you anything
Yeah.
new because it's only basing what it knows on what has happened in the past.
That's
Its
right.
only job is to keep you safe and
Hmm.
to make sure that you survive,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep.
So it's
Yep.
like in order to step into something new or to know something
Hmm.
new or to know yourself in a new way or to get in, step into that next level you want to get to, it's like you've got to get out of the head. And
That's right.
it's not going to make sense. Sometimes when you feel that move in your body where your body's like
Hmm.
saying yes,
Hmm.
and your mind is like, no, 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 that makes
Yeah.
no sense. I've done this
Right.
before. Are you sure you want to do that? Like this might happen and that might happen. And what if
That's
this
right.
happens?
Yep.
It's
Yep.
like, ah.
I know. And also, like, to what you're saying, you know, it's like you've got to take the action before you let your brain talk you out of
Oh my
it, you
gosh,
know?
Susan,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
You have to just like
Yeah.
stop thinking. And I have, I use this principle um in my own like fitness journey, right? Like I
Hmm.
fitness and exercise is my jam. I sometimes
Hmm.
think I'm like, I don't know, why was I not a personal trainer? But anyway, that's
Uh-huh.
another story. But like when I wake up in the morning and I know that I want to get my workout in the morning, I've noticed that if I lay in my bed and ruminate on
Yep.
it, like, oh, I gotta get
Hmm.
up and the more I do that, the less I'm going to do it anyway, but it's like
That's right.
it takes me longer to get there versus if I just decide get up
Yep.
and do the thing, get out of the head and just do the thing,
Hmm. Hmm.
we use much less
Yeah.
energy.
It's so true. Also, it's just like it's a little more joyful if you just get up and do the thing, right? Like
Yeah.
not saying you're going to love every part of it, but once you're moving and especially once you're done, right? You're like, "Oh my God, yeah, I did it." You know, like high five yourself, you know?
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
yeah. The other thing that I would say, you know, that a life coach told me once, which made so much sense and it just sort of clicked for me, was that, you know, your brain stem, you know, so like basically where your head attaches,
Hmm.
you know, to your body is the gate of fear, you know, so like every single thing has to pass through that gate of fear. Right? Like, and so I feel like that is the connection point and like to the rest of your body, quite literally, your neck, right, is where your head joins the rest. So there's always like this gate of fear that the decisions have to pass through. And your brain that is trying to protect you, you know, doesn't want you to suffer, doesn't want you to do that, right? So it is like the more you can just embody, you know, and also embody yourself when you're online, right? Like there's so many times that we're not in our prefrontal cortex, right? And what we know about that is that then we're in our lizard brain, we're making decisions from a place that just doesn't make any sense, right? So you have to bring yourself back online, you know, before you can make a coherent decision that is in the like in the interest of your best self, you know.
Oh, I love this. Oh, I'm loving
Yeah.
this conversation. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what would you say? I'd love to give our listeners like a couple of actionable
Mhm.
little things they could take away. So could you share like maybe two or three of your favorite like simple practices that someone listening to you could try right now,
Yeah.
throughout their day to just kind of bring themselves back to
Mhm.
self, back into alignment or back into their bodies?
Yeah, I would love to. So the first one that I have is you could do it anywhere, quite literally. And this was given to me by my breathwork teacher, Margaret Townsend, who she's got a book, The Breathwork Companion, little plug. But one of the things that she said is that when you're having a hard time, no matter what, no matter where you are, you can put your hand over your heart and you take a deep breath into the hand, you feel the hand, and you say, "May I have compassion for myself in this moment?" And I can't tell you how many times I would do this. And you're driving in the car when, you're having a hard time with your kids. Like we all know that, like, you can't wait to see them after school and you pick them up and they say one comment and you're thinking, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? And so you can even do it for yourself. You don't even have to say it out loud, like I've done this driving umpteen times, and it's right where the seatbelt crosses your heart, so it's almost like the seatbelt can help hold your hand there. And it's just like you can put your hand, you can say it in your head, like, may I have compassion for myself in this moment. I love
Mm,
that one. Um, and I feel like it's easy to remember. I think sometimes, some of the tools that we can find are so complicated that it's like, oh, wait, I got to find it in my notes,
right, right.
So that's one that I always like sort of have at my fingertips. The other one that's like, I don't know if it's so much of like a tool, but I think it's really important is, have you read the book, The Gap in the Gain?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So the principle of the book, right, is that the gap is forward, right? The gap is the horizon. The gap is where you're going. The gap is your goals. The gap is everything you want from your life,
Mhm.
But you never get to the horizon. It's always in front of you. You never get there. Your goals just keep changing, right?
Yeah.
So the gain is when you turn around and you look behind you and you look at where you've come from, right? And that's the only way that you can make sense of it. That's the only way that you can see your progress. You cannot see your progress by continually setting new goals for yourself. And so I love that thing where it's like, would you trade places with yourself from 6 months ago? Would you trade places with yourself from 3 months ago? Would you trade places from with yourself from last week? The answer is usually no,
Right. I'm sitting
right?
here thinking, no.
Right. No. So if the answer is no, why? The answer is no, because you've made progress. So it's always like there's that element of like beating ourselves up, and just feeling um like I'm not getting anywhere, I'm spinning my wheels, I'm not enough, like whatever the story is, right? Like we're pretty mean to ourselves. I mean, I know I am. I'm
Yes.
getting better about being kinder to myself, but I feel like self-compassion is where it's at. Like the softer and kinder you can be to yourself, you're going to get where you're going quicker. But I would offer that is like take stock of where you are and where you've
Mhm.
been, right? So that you can see what your alignment, how you've moved forward. And then I'm
Mhm.
looking up what my last one was. Okay. The last one that I have is is mindfulness, right? We know this is not new, but like simple things, the way that you're walking, the way that you're eating, the way that you're talking. Like I'm a fast talker. I'm
Mhm.
also a fast eater, you know what I mean? If you sit down, like, can you put your phone away? Can
Right.
you, if you're walking, can you do it in silence? Like, can you actually not be listening to this lovely podcast?
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, can you be with yourself?
Yes.
And tune in and like check in. How do I feel? Like, do I need another bite? Am I like, did I even taste that last bite? Or I'm just like getting to the next bite? Like, where am I? And I think that practice of mindfulness with whatever you're doing,
Mhm.
um, can really be helpful to like come and help you come into your body and help you feel into your body and help you to know your body, and to in that way, like then leads to the full body yes, right? Like if you know your
Mhm.
body and you know what it feels like to be in there and you know what it feels like when you're rushing or when you're anxious or when you're
Yep.
holding or when you're relaxed, then and you can be more in alignment with your decisions.
Mhm.
And you'll be able to sense that full body yes and where it comes from
Oh, so
much
good.
more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that mindfulness piece because it's
Mhm.
amazing how something that simple can be so
Mhm.
powerful.
So
So,
powerful, especially if you build a practice out of it.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Um,
Mhm.
all right. So, if a listener walks away today with
Uh-huh.
one thing from our conversation,
Mhm.
what do you hope that it is?
What do I hope that it is? I hope that anyone listening to this knows how valuable they are, knows that they have something to contribute, knows that they're worthwhile and that their voice is worthwhile, and that regardless of what their gift is, even if it might look so off the wall or crazy, it's needed, it's necessary. You're here for a reason and you have something to offer. And I hope that you find the courage, if you haven't yet, to shine your light and to speak your truth and your story, because it matters and it might matter for someone else. That's my hope.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gosh, I love this. Well, Suzanne,
Mhm.
thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story with such honesty and depth and just rawness. Like I loved it. Thank
Like I
you.
loved it. Yeah, I loved it too. Thank you so much for hosting me. I really appreciate it. It was so great to meet you, and it was so great to have this conversation together.
Good, good. Yes.
Yeah.
I know that many people, as you're listening to this, right, this conversation, I believe, is going to inspire so many women and just people in general listening, right, to
Hmm.
pause and remember that, coming home to ourselves doesn't have to be complicated. So, for everyone that's tuning in right now, I invite you to
Hmm.
just take a breath and reflect and really think about like what is one small micro practice that you can weave into your day to help you return to yourself when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel out of balance. Suzanne shared three of them with you here today because, as we've learned in this conversation, it's often the simplest, most consistent actions that create the biggest ripple effects in our lives. So do that. And everyone, thank you so much for being a part of the Soulful Success by Design community and the Redefining Success movement. And what I'd love to know is if today's conversation resonated with you, please share this episode with another soul led woman who would be inspired by Suzanne's story, by our conversation. You can tag us on Instagram. I'm going to make sure that all of Suzanne's information is in the show notes. So tag us, let us know what came up for you. And if you haven't yet, please make sure that you are subscribed and following the podcast so you never miss a moment of this journey. Until next time, may you move forward with alignment, authenticity, and the courage to create success on your own terms. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Soulful Success by Design. If you enjoyed our conversation and found value in it, please leave a rating and review on iTunes to help me continue bringing more inspiring content your way. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Soulful Success by Design or visit my website at kendrakwoods.com for extra inspiration and resources. I appreciate you so much and can't wait to connect with you in the next episode. Until then, remember to create success from your soul and on your terms.